Elderly waitress serves rude billionaire not knowing he's her biological son. The diner was almost empty when she wiped down the last booth, her tired hands moving in slow circles across the worn vinyl. Outside, the streetlights flickered against the autumn fog, and somewhere in the distance, a car door slammed. She paused, looking at her reflection in the window, gray hair pulled back, lines around her eyes that hadn't been there 10 years ago. 25 felt like a lifetime away now. She was 48, not elderly, but her body felt older. Every shift reminded her of that. Still, she showed up. She always showed up. Because this diner, with its cracked coffee mugs and peeling wallpaper, was all she had left of the life she'd built after everything fell apart. Then the bell above the door chimed. She turned, forcing a smile. The man who walked in didn't smile back. "Where are you watching from tonight?" His suit was expensive, tailored, dark, the kind that whispered money without saying a word. He moved through the diner like he owned it, though he'd never been there before. She could tell by the way his eyes swept the room, taking in the faded booths and the flickering neon sign outside with something between curiosity and disdain. "Good evening," she said, her voice steady despite the exhaustion pulling at her bones. "Sit anywhere you'd like." Chose the corner booth without acknowledging her, pulled out his phone, and began typing with sharp, deliberate movements. She gave him a moment, then approached with a menu and a glass of water. "Can I get you something to drink while you decide?" "Coffee. Black." He didn't look up. She nodded, used to this. Some people came in tired and kind. Others came in tired and cruel. She'd learned not to take it personally, though sometimes, late at night when she counted her tips, it still stung. When she returned with the coffee, he finally looked at her. His eyes were dark, unreadable, but there was something in them, something that made her pause. She couldn't place it. Maybe she was just tired. "What do you recommend?" he asked, his tone flat. "The meatloaf's good. Made fresh today. Comes with mashed potatoes and green beans." He glanced at the menu, then back at her. "That'll do." She wrote it down, turned to leave, but his voice stopped her. "How long have you worked here?" The question surprised her. Most people didn't ask. "About 15 years?" she said quietly. He nodded, something flickering across his face before it smoothed back into indifference. "Must be hard work." "It is," she admitted, "but it's honest." She walked away before he could say anything else, feeling the weight of his gaze on her back. There was something unsettling about him, something familiar she couldn't name. She shook it off. Customers came and went. Tomorrow, she wouldn't even remember his face. But when she brought his food, he asked another question. "Do you have family?" Her hands trembled slightly as she set the plate down. "No," she said after a moment. "Not anymore." He stared at her for a long time, and she felt something cold slide down her spine. Then he picked up his fork and began to eat, and the moment passed like smoke. She tried to focus on her other tables, but her mind kept drifting back to the man in the corner. There was something about the way he looked at her, not unkind, but searching, as if he were trying to solve a puzzle only he could see. When she brought the check, he didn't reach for his wallet right away. Instead, he folded his hands on the table and studied her face. "You said you don't have family," he said slowly. "What happened to them?" She stiffened. This wasn't the kind of conversation she had with strangers, especially not at the end of a long shift. But something in his voice, a quiet insistence, made her answer. "I had a son once," she said, the words coming out before she could stop them. "A long time ago? I was young. Too young. I couldn't take care of him, so I—" Her voice broke and she looked away. "I gave him up. For adoption. I thought it was the right thing to do." The silence that followed was suffocating. She wiped her hands on her apron, suddenly aware of how much she'd revealed. "I'm sure he had a better life than I could have given him," she added quickly, trying to smile. "I think about him sometimes. Wonder what kind of man he became." The man's jaw tightened. For a moment, she thought she saw pain flash in his eyes, but it was gone so fast she couldn't be sure. "Do you ever regret it?" he asked quietly. She nodded, tears threatening. "Every single day?" Reached into his wallet then, pulled out several bills. Far more than the meal cost. Dan placed them on the table. Keep the change, sir? This is too much, keep it. His voice was firm, but not unkind. He stood, buttoned his coat, and looked at her one last time. You did what you thought was right. That's all anyone can do. Then he walked out into the night, leaving her standing there with trembling hands and a heart that ached in ways she couldn't explain. She picked up the bills, counting them through blurred vision. $200. Enough to cover rent this month. Enough to breathe a little easier. But it wasn't the money that stayed with her. It was the look in his eyes, the one that felt like recognition, like grief, like something she didn't dare name. If this moment touched your heart, please give the video a thumbs up. She couldn't sleep that night. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw him, the sharp line of his jaw, the way his shoulders tensed when she mentioned her son, the quiet anger that seemed to simmer just beneath his calm exterior. She told herself she was imagining things. Grief did that sometimes, made you see connections that weren't there. But when she finally drifted off, she dreamed of a baby's cry, of signing papers with shaking hands, of walking out of a hospital with empty arms and a hollow chest. The next evening, he came back. She was refilling the coffee station when the bell chimed. And when she turned, there he was, same suit, same unreadable expression, same booth in the corner. Her heart lurched. She approached slowly, menu in hand, but he waved it away. Just coffee, he said. She poured it in silence, acutely aware of the tension hanging between them. When she set the cup down, he spoke without looking up. I lied yesterday. She froze. What? I do know about family. His voice was low, controlled. I grew up in foster care. 12 different homes before I aged out of the system. No one wanted me long enough to keep me. Her breath caught. I'm sorry, don't be. He finally looked at her, and this time the pain in his eyes was unmistakable. I made something of myself. Built a company from nothing. Became successful, but there's always been this ... gap. This question I couldn't answer. She sank into the seat across from him without thinking, her legs suddenly weak. What question? Why? His voice cracked, just slightly. Why wasn't I enough? Why did she leave me? Tears spilled down her cheeks before she could stop them. Maybe she didn't want to, she whispered. Maybe she was scared and alone and thought she was doing the right thing. Maybe she's regretted it every day since. He stared at her, something dawning in his expressions, something terrible and beautiful and too big to hold. What was your son's birthday? He asked, his voice barely audible. Her hand shook as she answered. March 17th, 1977. The color drained from his face. He reached into his pocket, pulled out a worn birth certificate, and slid it across the table. She looked down at the date. March 17th, 1977, and the mother's name, a name she hadn't used in 30 years. The name she'd had before she married and lost everything. Her name. Have you ever faced something like this? Share your story in the comments. The world tilted. She gripped the edge of the table, staring at the paper that held the truth she'd never dared hope for. Her son, her baby. The child she'd held for 5 precious minutes before the nurses took him away. He was sitting across from her now, a man of 48, with his father's eyes and her stubborn chin. And he was looking at her like she was both the answer and the wound. You're him, she breathed. You're really him, he nodded slowly, his jaw clenched tight. I hired an investigator 6 months ago. Found your name? This diner? I thought I just wanted to see you once, to know what kind of person would give away their child. His voice broke. But when I walked in yesterday and saw you, tired, kind, still showing up, I didn't know what to feel. She reached across the table, her hand hovering over his. I was 17, she said, tears streaming freely now. Your father left when he found out I was pregnant. My parents kicked me out. I had nowhere to go, no money, no way to take care of you. The social worker said you'd have a better chance with a real family. I believed her. I thought I was saving you. You're saving yourself, he said, but there was no venom in it, only pain. No. Her voice was firm now, strengthened by years of grief she'd carried alone. I was trying to give you everything I couldn't provide. Love isn't always keeping someone. Sometimes it's letting them go. He closed his eyes, and when he opened them again, they were wet. I needed you, I know. She finally touched his hand, and he didn't pull away. I needed you to... Every single day, they sat like that for a long time, mother and son, strangers and family, bound by absence and presence, both. The diner hummed around them, oblivious to the quiet miracle unfolding in the corner booth. Finally, he spoke. I don't know how to do this. Neither do I, she admitted. But maybe we can figure it out together, he nodded, squeezing her hand. I'd like that. She smiled through her tears, and for the first time in 30 years, the hollow place in her chest began to fill with something warm and real, hot, and achingly hopeful. If you've been enjoying this story, subscribe for more heartwarming tales. They met the next day at a small park near the river, the kind of place where mothers pushed strollers and old men fed pigeons. She brought photos, faded snapshots of her younger self, the only proof she'd kept of who she'd been before everything changed. He brought questions, years of them, and she answered each one as honestly as she could. What was the hardest part? He asked as they walked along the path. She thought about it. Waking up every morning and choosing to keep going, knowing you were out there somewhere, living a life I'd never see. He nodded slowly. I used to imagine you sometimes. Wonder if you ever thought about me. Every single day, she said again, because it was the truest thing she knew. They talked for hours about his childhood, her regrets, the life he'd built, and the one she'd barely held together. He told her about his company, his success, the way he'd driven himself relentlessly because achievement was the only thing that filled the emptiness. She told him about the diner, the regulars who became her family, the way she'd learned to find joy in small kindnesses. I'm proud of you, she said finally, the words catching in her throat. For everything you've become. You didn't need me to be extraordinary. But I wanted you, he said quietly. That's the part I'm still working through, I know. She took his hand again, marveling at how solid it felt, how real. And I'm here now. If you'll let me be, he looked at Hurley. He looked. The way he had that first night hand, this time she saw recognition without resentment, pains softened by possibility. I'd like to try, he said. She smiled. And it felt like sunrise after the longest night. They made plans to meet again the following week. No grand gestures, no erasing the past. Just two people learning to be family, one careful step at a time, as she watched him walk away. She felt something shift inside her, the weight she'd carried for 30 years lifting, replaced by something lighter. Not forgiveness, because she'd never stopped needing that, but grace, the kind that whispers second chances are real, even when you've stopped believing in them. She returned to the diner that evening, tied on her apron, and greeted the regulars with a smile that reached her eyes. Outside, the autumn fog rolled in again, but inside, the coffee was hot and the lights were warm, and for the first time and longer than she could remember, she felt like she was home. If you enjoyed this story, please like, share your thoughts in the comments, and subscribe for more. Thank you for spending your time with us today.